gotta be kidding. Talk about pathetic.
What's up, boys? So, as many of you have probably already heard, Microsoft has come out and said that PlayStation is deliberately paying developers to keep their games off of Game Pass. Not keep their games exclusive to the PS5, but keep them off of the Game Pass service. Not Xbox as a whole, just the Game Pass service alone, because apparently it's just too big of a threat to Sony. I already find it pretty pathetic when either Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo approaches a third-party company and gives them money to keep a game like timed exclusive on their platform or something. But this is like a step up from that. This is literally PlayStation paying third parties not for exclusives, but to keep a game off of a rivaling service. Not a rivaling console, just the service. It's so... it honestly is just pathetic. Now, this whole situation, I guess, caused a lot of fanboys to react in various ways. Xbox fanboys were obviously quite salty about this, but personally I think they have the right to be pretty salty about this because it is a very anti-consumer move on Sony's part. And on the complete opposite end, where of course the PlayStation fanboys who were celebrating this and pretending like it was no big deal at all because Sony, whenever they do a anti-consumer move, none of their fanboys give a shit. You know, who cares about paying $70 for a fucking video game, am I right? Anyway, let's get into some PlayStation fanboy bullshit.
That's rich, coming from the company that purchased two massive publishers solely to keep content off PlayStation because they were unable to compete in the market despite being one of the largest companies in the world. The level of hypocrisy at Xbox is astounding.
No, see, the reason why Microsoft bought Bethesda and Activision Blizzard was so they could make exclusive games for Game Pass. And you might say, but Atomics, isn't that basically the same thing? Because if they make exclusive games for Game Pass, it means that those games won't be on PlayStation. But there's a key difference here. Xbox bought those studios so they could have more exclusive games on their own platform and more content on their own platform. What PlayStation is doing is paying developers specifically to keep content off of other platforms, not to get more content on their own platform or not to make games exclusive. Specifically, they're paying to keep games off of Game Pass. And yes, Microsoft has indeed bought up a lot of studios, mainly because before they were unable to properly compete in the market, but Sony in the past has also bought up studios that were making games for both PlayStation and Xbox, and nobody seems to have a problem with that. Also, Activision Blizzard have already announced that even after the purchase goes through, some of the games they're making will still be going to PlayStation.
What a news, lol. This is what exclusivity is. Companies almost never pay to make a game truly exclusive. Microsoft pays developers to put games on Game Pass, Sony is paying developers for exclusives, and not to put the games on Game Pass. This is $1 trillion business. What did you expect?
I wasn't expecting such petty bullshit from a company that's as highly regarded as PlayStation. I mean, first they make this whole statement about how Call of Duty on Xbox is going to completely destroy the PlayStation so that they can get the FTC to investigate Microsoft and make the purchase not go through, and now they're specifically paying games or game developers to keep their games off of Game Pass. I mean, PlayStation has just really fallen off.
And you fell off.
And no, this is not just what exclusivity is. Exclusivity is where a company puts their game exclusively on a certain console so that if someone wants to play that game, they'll have to buy that console even though they might not want to. But what PlayStation is doing is they're specifically paying companies not to make exclusive games, but to keep their games off of Game Pass because Sony doesn't want to compete with Game Pass because they kinda know that they can't, or they could compete with Game Pass, but for some reason they prefer to, instead of competing with Microsoft, now that Microsoft is like relevant again in the gaming space, they'd prefer to just try and sabotage Microsoft instead of, actually competing with them.
I mean, I would too. If it's free on Game Pass and $70 on PlayStation, you're always gonna play it on Xbox. So I don't blame Sony here, because it's just business.
Okay, but hear me out. They could also try to not raise their game price to $70 or make, an alternative for Game Pass to actually try to compete with it. I mean, they sort of made a service that kind of competes with Game Pass, but you know, people will still go with Game Pass because Game Pass is just far more consumer friendly. But no, instead of that, Sony will just choose to keep doing anti-consumer shit because they know that their fanboys will buy whatever bullshit they put out anyway, regardless of its, you know, consumer friendliness or its quality. And then spend their money not trying to compete with Microsoft, but trying to sabotage them because I guess that's easier or something, I don't know.
Hey, not like they paid for chip favoritism, or an entire publisher to keep their games off of a competing console, or for a 48-hour time period before a port that is going to be day one on Game Pass was announced for other platforms.
Okay, so the chip favoritism thing, we are in like a global chip shortage. All these tech companies can't make their products because there aren't enough chips, and Microsoft is paying extra to make sure that they get the chips they need to make enough Xboxes. Is this scummy? I mean, yeah, kinda, but is it like incredibly anti-consumer or incredibly bad or whatever? No, I mean, it's a bit anti-consumer maybe because now people can't really buy a PlayStation because Microsoft gets all the chips over Sony. So it's definitely scummy, but it's not like they're, I don't know, paying money to make sure that their competitor can't get certain games because they might threaten their entire business model, you know what I mean? It's not like they're trying to sabotage their competitor because they don't want to compete with them properly, you know? And yes, they did buy 2 publishers. They bought Bethesda and Activision Blizzard, although the Activision Blizzard deal hasn't gone through yet. Again, it's not specifically to keep their games off of other consoles, otherwise they would just keep all the games off of other consoles and not just certain ones. It's mainly to make sure that they can have exclusives for Game Pass. And I don't know what this 48-hour time period thing is about. It doesn't really sound like it's Microsoft's fault though, because all Microsoft or Xbox Studio games, we already know they're coming to both Xbox and PC like by default, right? So this game that got announced for Game Pass and then 2 days before release it was announced was also going to other platforms. I can't find anything about it on the internet, could just be me, but it doesn't sound like it's an Xbox like Studios game or anything Microsoft really had any control over.
As they should, just as Microsoft does with timed exclusives on Game Pass.
I didn't think I'd even have to explain this, but there is a difference between a game being timed exclusive on Game Pass and a competitor paying for a game to never come to Game Pass to begin with. The difference there is the word timed. See, a timed exclusive is exclusive for a certain amount of time. What Sony is doing is permanently trying to keep third-party games off of Game Pass. Anyway boys, PlayStation fell off. Remember during the Xbox One, PS4 era when Xbox was being very anti-consumer with like the always online things and whatever, and Sony made fun of them, and now you know, Xbox is becoming more and more pro-consumer than Sony is, and they're actually competing with Sony again. And instead of Sony now realizing that they're being anti-consumer and doing the same thing Xbox did, which is improve, they're just trying to sabotage them, get them investigated by the government so that, you know, the Activision purchase doesn't go through, paying companies to keep games off their platform, etc, etc. It's just very fucking pathetic, honestly. But with that being said, guys, this is the end of the video. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.